Although I learned OOP practices in my university programming courses, I recently came across Bob Martin's solid principles, and after studying up on them, I decided to make a program for each principle to not only demonstrate my understanding of the principles, but also because one of the best ways to learn something well is to teach it. Keep in mind, I've tried to make each program as simple as possible, so we're only going to deal with one principle at a time, and for simplicity's sake, I might leave out some important code here and there, like memory deallocation or deconstructors and header files. That being said, let's get to the content. Single responsibility principle. Let's just go straight into an example. Yesterday, we had a customer come in and he requested that we write him a program that keeps track of multiple pieces of information pertaining to a car, like its speed, its horsepower, and whether or not it's due for an oil change. He also said that since he's the manager of a dealership, he needs to keep track of his cars in his car lot and each car's specifications. He also told us that he will need to monitor the status of those variables through the console. Thankfully, he was very specific with how he wanted his program to run, and us being the amazing programmers that we are, we told him we'd have it done in 24 hours. And here's what we came up with. We have our Ford class that keeps track of our specifications. We have functions that manipulate these specifications. We have functions that print out to the console, and then we have some functions that do both. Lastly, we have our car lot function, which adds a car to the car lot, or in this case, a vector of Ford pointers. When we run the program, our output matches exactly what the customer wanted, and he was really happy with the final product. So happy, in fact, that he told all his friends about it, and now we have 9 new car projects to make. The only bad thing is, each project is different. Steve wants his program to print to the console only when it needs an oil change. Mrs. Brownstone likes the current Ford class, but she wants to add 8 new functionalities and change some of the existing console output. This is obviously going to be a pain, so instead of getting crazy with the copy and paste, let's do a little more work up front in an effort to make the 9 projects easier. Alright, so we rewrote the program using the single responsibility principle, and here's what it looks like. We have our Ford class, which keeps track of our specifications and enables us to manipulate that data as we please. However, what we did differently this time was that we added a separate class for output functions. And we also added a separate class that manages our car lot. Now, since we have these 3 responsibilities separated, we can simply extend these 3 classes whenever we want to make a new car project. And then we can use the main function to implement them in whatever way we like. More specifically, after adding all the customer's desired functionality into the printer class and Ford class, the only thing we really have to spend a lot of time working on whenever we start a new project is the main function. In addition, if we were to make a project with 30 different types of Fords, and our customer decides that they want to change the way we add Fords to a car lot, then we can change every instantiation of it by editing our car lot class, rather than going into the Ford Taurus class and editing the add to car lot function, and going into the Ford Bronco class and editing the car lot function, and then going into the Ford Ranger class. You see where I'm going with this. And that's the single responsibility principle. Of course, you could take this a step further and say that oil management is its own responsibility, and we should have a class specifically for managing the status of the oil and our oil changes. But when implementing the single responsibility principle, it's really up to the programmer to decide whether or not the benefits of making a class smaller is worth the ease of scalability that comes later on. And sure, you'll have a lot of different classes whenever you implement the single responsibility principle, but as long as your files are named appropriately, then whenever you need to make a change, finding the file you need should be a breeze.